In the studio with me is Professor Nicola Kleyn. She's Dean of the Gordon Institute of Business Science, and she is here. Also joining us is Kganki Matabane, CEO of the Black Business Council. Can I begin from an academic perspective? So we saw the president yesterday, after a weekend of feverish speculation, coming through and saying he has found a new man to replace Kganki, whose resignation he expected. Let's just speak about the conduct of the president over this 3-day period.
I think what's been highly commendable is the speed at which the president's moved.
Was he fast?
He was fast. To assemble a new finance minister over a 3-day period means you've got some lobbying to do, and the fact that the markets have responded so well to it, and in fact we don't seem to see too much negative outlook at all coming from any quarters, I think is vindication of his actions.
Right. So you were saying he moved quickly, and I am thinking if Nene spoke to him on Friday, surely he could have perhaps consulted over the weekend and given an announcement at the weekend. You are saying one more day didn't make much of a difference in this instance?
I don't think so in this context. I think what is the reason to move really quickly was, of course, the Moody's ratings that are going to be announced on Friday. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Why
was it important for him to move fast?
So would 24 hours make a significant difference? I don't think so. But in terms of waiting post those ratings to announce this and having more uncertainty thrown into the mix, I think it sends a very powerful both political and economic message. So on one hand, we've just heard that we want safe hands. Yes. The Minister of Finance on their own cannot deliver the kinds of economic outcomes that we're looking for.
Right.
But the fiscal discipline is something that Minister Mboweni is well known for. Yeah. Certainly as Governor of the Reserve Bank, he's got a safe track record on that.
Yeah.
The issue that we need to be focusing on as well is how do we reduce the political uncertainty and risk, and how does the Zondo Commission move a little faster?
And how will business look on Tito's appointment, given his track record? We know him from the beginning as a Minister of Labour. Then we also know him, of course, for the decade that he spent at the Reserve Bank.
I think the response from business is going to be incredibly favourable. I think the issue, though, when we start looking at what's led to these resignations and when we look at state capture, business cannot just comment on what's going on politically. Business has to do its own soul-searching about the role that it's played. It's fascinating to me that we've got a former Minister Nene throwing himself on a sword here, yet we've got business executives and firms that are implicated in state capture that have taken no such measures.
Absolutely.
So it's all very well for business to comment on politics. It's time for business to start focusing on their own ethics.
Well, we've got business in the studios. Business is right next to you. Kganki is here, is sitting there and is listening to you. Let's begin first with your reaction to the appointment of Tito Mboweni as the new finance minister.
We welcome the appointment of Tito Mboweni. He's a well-experienced minister. He's got the gravitas, and that's basically what we need at the moment in the country. Just to give an example, when you've got a patient that is extremely sick, what do?
Yeah.
You first stabilize the patients.
Yes.
And then later you can then say patients go and run 100 meters.
Right.
And I think that's what the president did. He said, I need a safe pair of hands to stabilize the economy, so that we don't end up being in the hands of the IMF by bringing a well-seasoned person. And then later we can look at growth, because as you know, we just come from the job summit where we wanted to create 200 and something jobs per year. You need a person of Mboweni's caliber to steady the finances of the country. Continue
with your analogy of this sick patient who we know was in recession in the first 6 months of the year. Don't you think this patient requires perhaps, some electrical shock to try to get them going again? Because, I mean, technically this patient is dead.
Yeah, the thing is, you know, some doctors say the operation was successful, but the patient is dead. You don't want to get to that level. You want to say the operation was successful, the patient is still alive, and we need time to stabilize the patient. It takes time to heal. For the past 9 years has been very terrible for our country. We need to stabilize to an extent that the patient can then say, I can stand on my own.
For sure. You have sector interests. You represent the Black Business Council. Here we are. Tito Mboweni, boy from Sanini, as he says, if I don't understand it, I don't do it. That's what he says. Do you see him being able to understand the specific needs of black business in this country? Or are we at that juncture where we don't need specific attention on a black business, but simply fixing of the environment in which business operates before we begin talking about whether we need to grow black business or not?
What is happening in the country we've got a challenge of unemployment,
yes.
Which is huge. You've got more than 50% of young people unemployed, which for me, that is a serious threat to our democracy.
Yeah.
And then when we speak to members, they're saying we've got the challenge of access to funding and then access to the markets.
Right.
And then we hope the appointment of Mboweni will then bring access to funding. And you need access to risk funding.
Yeah.
And
but we know he's a conservative man. From his time at the Reserve Bank, we know this is not the kind of guy who's going to say, I'm going to cut interest rates in order to be able to get this economy growing. We saw his conduct. He was very strict. And yes. As many people say, he was also very disciplined. $10 billion reserves at the beginning of his term, $40 billion by the time he left.
Yeah. Yes, we need that discipline.
We do. Okay.
But we need to fund, you know, for example, black and small businesses are more amenable to creating jobs than big businesses.
Sure.
Because if I had a project now, as an individual myself, and then you give me 2 projects, I need more capacity.
Sure.
So it's easier for me then to say I need 5 people more.
Yeah.
And then I can create employment. So we need to support small business. You need to support black business.
Right.
So that we can then create the jobs, and then that way you are growing the tax base.
Yeah.
That then will increase the participation and the capacity of the economy, and then you will then grow the economy and reduce unemployment and reduce poverty at the same time.
Absolutely. Professor Steyn, from your perspective, when you see Tito Mboweni, he's already at work, as we know, he was sworn in yesterday. When you see him come in, do you see him being able to create the kind of rapport that's required with business, black business, to be able to get the economy growing again?
Absolutely. If you look at his track record, he's had significant engagement with business. He's an old hand playing in business environments.
He was sitting on the board of Goldman Sachs, right? So we need to remember that.
Well, yeah. we should remember that, but also in his former roles associated with the state. So as Governor Emeritus, as the Minister of Labour, and there's an argument here that says the Minister of Labour also has to be very much aware of what happens with unemployment.
Yes.
And driving that. He brings an impeccable set of credentials to this role. The fact that he is renowned as being a technocrat and as being conservative, I think is going to allay international investor fears, and we do need international investment. The issue, though, of the kinds of plans that we see going forward coming from government is not the purview of the finance minister alone, though, and that's the question for me, is what role is he going to play in the cabinet? What is the impact of his appointment going to be on cabinet dynamics, given our cabinet? I don't have an answer. I eagerly await to watch what happens.
I was also going to ask you if you don't think perhaps that what the country requires is someone who's able to shake up the system. Because in South Africa, you've got this huge economy where you have this very strong, I'm not going to call them cartels, but we know that we've got big monopolies in this country. If you look at mining, if you look at banking, you look at food processing, wherever you look, you see these big corporations. And the suggestion has been what you need to do is to break them up. And I don't know if it's the guy that's got perhaps the kind of approach that's required to shake things up, like Trump has done in the US. As much as we don't like some of his politics, he's absolutely got the economy growing again.
I'm not particularly pro the idea of a cowboy. I'm going to agree with Mr. Matabane around the notion of the sick patient.
Sure.
I think we can't afford too many shake-ups. We have a major election coming up. We need a very steady hand on the tiller, and then we need, there's absolutely no doubt, imagination. We need to be rethinking about resources. There's nothing in his background that suggests that he won't be making a major contribution to that kind of growth.
Absolutely. Your closing thoughts, sir? You think this is the man? He will be able to get us the growth that we require?
Yeah, I think so. And interestingly, we were busy discussing with the Competition Commissioner and also the minister responsible for the Competition Commission. And there's a huge push to say, let's use the competition law to
stop
open the market
within the economy.
And I'm sure the Minister of Finance, the new Minister of Finance, will be able to support that type of initiative with the support also of the President, because the Minister on his own can't do everything. But
Absolutely.
the minister is the right person as far as we're concerned.
I don't know. Let me tell you a little anecdote. So this is me, young reporter, coming to South Africa 2001, and I am sent to cover the Reserve Bank Governor's dinner, and I rock up. I'm in my casuals. It's in the evening. It's 7 p.m. and I rock up, and the governor sees me and he says, "Young man, where are you from?" I said, "I'm from Bloomberg, sir." And he says, "No, we are not going to be able to attend a dinner I present here without a tie. Go and find a tie." I had to go and find a tie. Is he the kind of disciplinarian we need? Perhaps so. Time will tell. Nicola, thank you. Thank you, Kganki, for coming through.